Yeah, so I don't know why. So you're saying like the British ones all have the "Where's Waldo" sort of look
Yeah.
to it, and but
Where's
this,
Waldo? Sorry, I said Wally, but
yeah, where's
Waldo.
Waldo? Where's Waldo? Well, that'd be funny if Waldo was in here. But yeah, this is the version that came from Amazon. Like when we were
Okay.
trying to get a new copy for the for this podcast, was it took months and it was the British one. So I don't know what's going on. But Brian, which one were you able to get?
I have the Penguin edition. It's kind of a
Yeah, this is the original cover. It's the photo of this lumber sort of thing.
And that's the same photo, but just cropped different. But that blue
Yeah,
one that you have, Brian, that's the one that's been around forever. And that's the one that
yeah,
like if you go to order, that's the image that's there.
yeah.
And yet, like what's coming is this.
yeah.
Kai, you got
Now,
the day too.
probably now with the movie and with the new Pynchon novel, there's going to be some sort of reissue or reprint with a new cover with Leonardo DiCaprio on the cover or something like that.
Honestly, I don't know that it's gonna happen. It would already be here. It would be
Yeah,
announced. It's not
that's true.
announced. The movie's in 3 weeks. Like, I don't
Okay,
think
yeah,
that
it's
they're
true.
gonna do it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's true.
we'll see. Anyways, this is the 2 month review in which we're talking about Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. We'll be talking about it for the next 7 weeks. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, and I'm joined by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox, Kaija Straumanis, editor and translator from the Latvian and German, and Rodrigo Fresán, author of many numerous books that we have covered on this podcast, including the Part Trilogy, Invented Part, Dream Part, and Remembered Part, and more recently, Melvill, and the author of a book called Mantra that I'll be editing this month. So you're on my mind, buddy. Actually, Rodrigo, before you speak, I have to tell you, I got a fan note this morning from someone who had ordered books and was like, I discovered the 2 month review because I wanted to read the invented part. And I discovered the podcast and started listening to it. And Rodrigo Fresán is amazing. So
Well, great.
there you are.
Thank you.
So I think we should start with this, aside from talking about the variations of the book.
Sorry, amazing is a very ambiguous sort of thing because I mean, Donald Trump is amazing in his own way, also. So
True. There's
you
some
know,
amazing things that he's doing that are
it's no,
amazingly productive.
it's something like when they told you when you were young and says, "I want you to meet a very interesting girl."
Yep.
Interesting. What does that exactly means?
She's different. She's different.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they just say
Thomas Pynchon, interesting guy. Not my kind of guy. Some people's guy, not my guy. Big
It's
book.
an
Is it a
Big.
beautiful book? We don't know. We don't know, but it's a
yeah,
big book. Well,
it's an interesting writer. Yeah, an
I can
amazing
imagine
writer.
like Trump would if Trump reading Vineland would blow his mind. I mean, any of the other ones like Mason and Dixon or say Gravity's Rainbow would not be possible. But theoretically, anyone could read this book, and I think it would be like, Trump would never see like the irony or the satire. He'd never see it. So
Yeah.
before we get into the book and like some of the background on it, how did you guys? What's your experience with Pynchon? So Rodrigo, I think you and I are similar. So let's start with Kaija. What's your Pynchon experience? Found out about him, read anything? What's your deal?
Oh, Christ almighty. Okay. So the only other thing I've read is Crying of Lot 49. I
Mhm.
should have said Crying of Lot 52 just to make someone angry, which I feel like was a prerequisite for knowing Chad Post. That felt like the entrance exam, and that's basically it. And I I posted about this on Instagram this morning, but I'll say it here again. If ever there was an author who gave me imposter syndrome or that I have complexes about reading, it's Thomas Pynchon. And I've been thinking a lot about that. And Rodrigo being on the podcast today also gives me like extra nerves and anxiety about it because I don't know. I feel like he is a writer that so many people who I respect and in the publishing world and of readers who have read him and who really enjoy his work. And there's like a camp of Pynchon readers. And I feel like I am on the outside of it, and not just because I haven't read most of what he's written. I feel like to me, he's an author where it's like, in order to be liked and respected by readers like you, like Brian, like Rodrigo, and writers like the three of you, I need to be able to understand it beyond a surface level, and that really rattles my cage.
That's interesting. Can I respond to that real quick? Is I think that reading, especially this book, there are levels to it. Like, I think that Vineland in particular can just be read straight and enjoyed straight for what it is. There are like little games, little like references to his earlier books, references to pop culture, like word games that like are kind of in there that are like they're kind of like the equivalent of what would be Easter eggs, where you're like, oh, for the fan, you can pick this out and you're like, that's funny, or I get that. But I don't know that that's necessary. I think that something like Mason and Dixon and Against the Day in particular are much bigger lifts in terms of like trying to understand what the fuck is happening. Like Against the Day is a crazy ass book. Structurally in terms of like his topics. And you can read, I think with any of his books, you can read the sections. They're very like storytelly. They have like a sort of plot. They're just like elliptical and weird, and we'll have weird conversations that you're like, I don't really know what's being talked about here. But like with Against the Day, putting all those together is really hard. Whereas I think like with this, it's a smooth path. But I do agree with you that the Pynchon heads, of which I suppose I'm sort of included by having the tattoo. Although I'm on the Reddit thread and like they go much deeper than I ever have. They can be both intimidating and probably like, you're wrong, like a little bit of the finger pointy stuff, but I wouldn't worry about them. I think that those are all people like that are much older and, people who are younger reading Pynchon have read Bleeding Edge, read Inherent Vice, seen the movie. Those are a different world than like back in 1990, where it was like Gravity's Rainbow and a few minor works, and you're waiting for this great Mason and Dixon novel to come out, which then is written in like 1700s crazy or 1600s crazy language and has its own set of challenges. So just to say, I don't think you should be intimidated. I think you should just feel like you enjoy the book or don't enjoy.
I agree. When I read all his books and I read, the first one I read was Gravity's Rainbow in Spanish that came out in 2 volumes, I remember. Then I went back and I read the short one, that Lot 49 and then B.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the clue about reading Pynchon, and it's the same thing that I apply to, reading William Gass or William Gaddis, even David Foster Wallace, is that I think you just have to read and keep on reading and don't care or worry a lot about understanding. Because finally, I think the major character in all Pynchon books, which are books that are flooded with lots of characters, I think that all those characters, what they really do is barely mask the idea that Pynchon himself is the major character in all his books in terms of the style. It's a stylish writer. Plots, things that happen, things that you understand, things you don't understand, winks, glimpses, stupid songs, jokes, whatever.
Bad puns. So many bad puns.
I think that there are all sorts of. All that I think that they work in the way as the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band cover.
There is like back in when I was in college and this book had just come out, like there was a whole kind of critical movement of the book as like a kind of mechanistic organism of sorts, and that it creates itself and creates its own world and operates under that sort of principle, and that his books sort of generate that. And so they're kind of like a advance on the novel of ideas, where like what you're saying, like when you don't understand it, it's usually like a metaphor for a scientific process or like something that like you can get that, but like as a whole, it just kind of builds in the book where like, the main idea of all the books is entropy.
No, of course. And I think that reading Pynchon is like, in a way, it's like learning a language. You have to learn the language, the book. It's written in English or in the translation, you're reading it, but it's some sort of rhythm and cadence and some sort of, and finally, that's the thing that matters with this sort of book. And it happens, same thing happens with Joyce in a way, Yeah. And it's a funny thing. The other day I was like sort of making calculations, and the 17 years between Gravity's Rainbow and Vineland is the same number of years between Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I don't know if he did it on purpose,
Yeah, I
But
don't know. And it's weird because like we'll get into his history in a second. Brian, what about you?
I have a very limited experience with him actually. I'm pretty open about it. I didn't start reading till later in life. I didn't enjoy reading growing up, and then I became a voracious reader much later. And so when you get around the writing circles and the MFA circles, and you start hearing all these names, and I kept hearing Pynchon, 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 and as we said, like other postmodern writers that, are on that Mount Rushmore list. So I just took the smallest one possible because I could at least get my foot in the door, and it was Lot 49 and then Slow Learner.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, which makes
but
sense. Short stories. Tendrils.
but but again, I have a limited understanding of them. But yeah, I agree that if you try to know everything and figure it out and read it with like an academic cap on, you'll go crazy. Um, because it's like trying to figure out where a mushroom is going to sprout out of the ground. Like it's not like this pretty. It's not like the roots of a tree that are so pretty and arboresque. Like it's just pop 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 pop, and then you just kind of have to like bite into the mushroom, enjoy the trip, and you can get more out of it if you want.
Enjoy the trip
But
is doing a lot of work there. Yeah.
yeah, but it's kind of like when someone told me, "Oh, you have to watch this film Brazil by Terry Gilliam." It's like, okay. And then you're like, that's weird. That's and you can just enjoy the comedy of it on the surface level. You can get underneath it and be like, oh, I think this is a very anti-fascist and if you try to like break down every single scene and every like you can do that too. And there's many ways to enjoy it. But for
Yeah.
me, I know I'm reminded a lot of Nabokov with someone being a stylist. Just absolutely gorgeous, like gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous prose is my big
well, not
takeaway.
sorry. Nabokov was supposedly Thomas Pynchon teacher in Cornell.
Correct.
Okay.
And
So
that's
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say that listening to you guys talk about just like giving into the text and just reading and like enjoying it and going with the flow is exactly how I couch Sen Shui's work when I talk
Hmm.
about when I teach the editing class for your students, Chad, or I give the lecture on editing about how she was the first author for me, and with having that experience with working with the author where you'd ask like explain this part, like why, like my example being like why do why do the cobblestones suddenly become frogs, and her answer was like because they became frogs, like have a nice day, enjoy my book. And that
yeah,
was just learning to let go. And so it's interesting to hear that this obstacle that I have already surmounted with another author might be just the same obstacle, different author. And then I'm wondering if it's because it's English and it's not a translation. And so I feel like I should be getting it inherently immediately because English is one of my first languages. Um, but also the other funny thing is that all the other authors you guys have mentioned, Gaddis, Nabokov, Joyce, even to an extent, those are authors I've all read and I'm comfortable
Right.
within their books. So like, why is this guy the final frontier
I think
for my literary soul? Why is it so hard?
maybe Thomas Pynchon has become more representative of bro culture with like David Foster Wallace than say Joyce or Nabokov or any of the other ones that you named, just simply because
Mhm.
of like recency bias.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
maybe.
I have a
But
tattoo of a portrait of Thomas Pynchon recently right here.
that's what,
If
yeah,
you want to see
like
it.
you could totally.
You
I
have to put
love
lemon juice on it and a black light to see it.
Boom. I read Crying Lot 49 first in a class in which we read Kathy Acker's Blood and Guts in high school. Those are the last two books that we read, and everyone in the class except for me hated everything about that, about both books. But Crying really speaks to sort of what you're saying too, Brian, and what you're saying, Rodrigo, was that like I think a lot of his books work off of like Gödel's incompleteness theorem. They don't fit together. They can't fit together. There can't be a single solution. Crying Lot 49 being the most like on the page of that, where there's like the ending has four choices of what could happen or what is happening. It's all a conspiracy. It's all a coincidence. It's nefarious. It's not, and it's not resolved. Like that unresolvability of everything is there. Although again, like I do think Vineland's like a outlier. Vineland's sort of like a weird book in his career, which to me anyways. I think it's
it's a very political book. I think maybe it's the most political of his novels in terms of this is America. What are we going to do with this? TV is destroying our brains, whatever, etc. And it's a book. I think that it's pretty interesting from a sociological, archaeological, anthropological point of view because of its main characters that are like some sort of missing link between. It's between beatniks and hippies. It's I was really confused when Inherent Vice came out because I felt this is the Big Lebowski. I mean, he's like, doing the same thing. And then you understand that he did it first on Vineland and the Big Lebowski came later,
Right. Yeah, Inherent Vice is maybe my least favorite, but I would like to reread it. Like I feel like I read it under the guise of expecting it to be on the level with like Against the Day, and it's not. It's just a different book. It's a different approach. I think Bleeding Edge is sort of political too. But in the political thing, one of the threads that I've always talked about in relation to his books is that like one of the things he seems obsessed with is the idea of like when there is this moment of freedom, like as a human, as an individual, as a society, there was moments where like things were possible and there was this possibility to like how culture could be arranged. Like in we read for today when he goes to get the crawdads and they talk to like the sort of hippies living in the woods, they're representing like that, like off the grid, making it do in this way, like that possibility of like being a hippie of that sort. And then that always in his books comes in conflict with the greater, sometimes ill-defined them, like the powers that be that are going to crush that. And in this case, it's like most distinctly like the government, the federal government, the violence of the federal government is going to shut this down and have control. And
in a way, when I was, reading again these first chapters, and I went a little bit farther away. It reminded me also, of that the thing that Ken Casey did with, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and sometimes A Great Notion, that there are some sort of anti-system political novels, but with a huge sort of metaphorical, symbolic power,
Yeah. Yep. Very true. So anyway, so anyone who's not familiar with Pynchon, I'll give you a really quick like rundown. He obviously is born in 1937, so he's 88 years old, which makes him old enough to now be our president, I guess. He's also like most well known for being a recluse. There's like very few pictures, one of which appeared in a Delkey book, was one of the first and only pictures that existed for a very long time. But then nothing.
Yeah, sorry to. He said something very funny about being a recluse, and he said, I'm going to quote him. He said, "Recluse is a code word generated by journalists, meaning doesn't like to talk to reporters, and I don't want to pick up the phone and talk to you."
That's exactly it. I mean, the thing is, like, his
it's amazing. He's not a recluse. He's having his life. He doesn't want to give interviews. That's all.
I mean, there's the story of like them trying
Salinger.
Yeah, they were trying to.
Salinger wasn't a recluse at all. He was going to New York, meeting friends, and having lunch at the Algonquin, whatever.
I've met several people in my life who met Pynchon in various situations. Like when his son went to a particular private school, there's someone I knew that like had a kid in the same public school, and like Pynchon would donate signed copies of first edition of Crying Lot 49 for their and he saw him there and saw him on a bus later. Like he's around. His wife is a very famous agent who represents like Steve Erickson and some other, and Stephen Wright and like some other really interesting authors. Yeah. So he's like, he's there, but like, I agree. Like he just doesn't want to do that. And they try photos and
I was once at some sort of party at Salman Rushdie's house. There were lots of people. It was one of these pen club things.
Oh yeah.
And I've been there and when I was leaving, he said, "You know what? You were standing next to Pynchon for 22 minutes." I said, "What didn't?" And I said, "What didn't you tell me?" And said, "Because you were going to, do what you don't have to do." Yeah. And I had like a distant memory in the periphery of my eye of some sort of old hippie with white hair, long hair, whatever, and then that was it.
So funny. So yeah, people are obsessed with that. I don't really even ever cared about it. I thought it was cool. He has 10 works out so far, including Slow Learner, which is the only short story collection, which that makes sense why you would have read it, Brian, with your interest in short stories, which I remember distinctly because in his intro, he keeps saying, I use the word tendrils a lot when I was writing these stories. Everyone has a tendril. He's like, I cannot do that. And I was like, that's a beautiful observation about your own
Yeah.
writing.
The
Yeah,
introduction to this is amazing.
And he lived in Mexico. He had this connection with Bob Dylan through Richard Farinia.
Richard Fariani's book is awesome.
Yeah, and he read Borges, and if I'm not wrong, I think he translated Cortázar. He translated a few short stories by Cortázar.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I forgot to look up the thing. Back in the day, there's the rumor that he wrote all these letters to the editor of like maybe it was the Portland Mercury.
I have that. The Edna Farberg letter.
That's her name.
I have it.
Yes.
I have it here.
Which is amazing. I don't know if that's true or not, but I still love it. Like it's
who cares?
Sounds like him. It's fun.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So Vineland's the fourth novel. First was V60. It came out in 63. Lot 49, The Crying Lot 49 in 66. Gravity's Rainbow in 73, which then wins the National Book Award.
And he sent a comedian to pick up the prize.
Sent the comedian to pick up the prize. There was a streaker ran across. Giving a speech. I wrote one of the only cool things I ever wrote was for the National Book Foundation had for one of their anniversaries, someone write about each winner of each category throughout the years. And they gave me JR and Gravity's Rainbow. So the Gravity's Rainbow one was like just the most fun to write, just the most fun.
Yeah.
But all those stories about it, like, yeah, he had a comedian come to accept because you have to accept the award. And he's like, I'm not doing that. And the comedian's reading and like a streaker goes across the back, which couldn't be better. This was usually today, Vineland is considered to be generally one of his lesser novels. For a long time, it was sort of like put aside. There's like Gravity's Rainbow, Mason and Dixon, Against the Day. Those are the big four. And then Crying Lot 49 was like written while he was working on Gravity's Rainbow as like, a money-making, a short little like exercise. And then Vineland was while he was working on Mason and Dixon to like just pop something out as well, because there's a huge gap, like a 30-year gap almost between, or 25 between Gravity's Rainbow and Mason and Dixon. And I think a lot of people saw it as like lesser because it's not as complicated. It's not as like wacky in certain ways or like pressing the boundaries of like the science part. It's more like a little straightforward. But like over time, this seems to have gathered a lot of steam. There's the Vineland papers that Delkey published as this came out, more or less, that are, different critics on the book. But there's a book called Vineland, Rereading Vineland, that we're going to talk about later because the author that might be coming on here. But I think it's been a big reassessment, especially during the Trump era and the pandemic. I reread it during the pandemic and was stunned by like how much this sort of takes on contemporary political situation. That yes, like the dream of the 60s of this freedom was crushed by Reaganomics, and then you see it again now with like
and in a way I think like what I think that maybe the thing that sort of shocked or made the Pynchon fans at the moment when the book came out feel a little bit like cheated, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like a pastoral novel on LSD, it's like George Eliot. It's like Middlemarch in a way, It's structurally, I think it's the most 19th century novel Pynchon wrote. But when I say 19th century novel, I'm always, thinking about Melvill, that, which is another writer that you have to keep on reading without asking too much what he's trying to tell me in many ways.
Yeah. So we went through one last thing I was going to say is Salman Rushdie, as we've mentioned several times, was reviewed this for the New York Times when it came out. It was kind of amazing and gave it like high praise. So like nice little connection. It was funny because I was like, I wonder what the New York Times thought. And I was like, Salman Rushdie reviewed it? Like, whoa, cool. Right on.
Here's a fun one. I'm looking in the back of Slow Learner. So his first short story that he published was in the Cornell Writer, March of 1959.
Yeah, there we go.
So if you own a copy of the Cornell Writer, you're probably sitting on something nice there.
Very true. Very true.
And so yet another Rushdie connection, like with Tomb of Sand.
Oh yeah, yeah. The that's true. Very true. Rushy's all over this podcast the past two seasons. Um,
Yeah.
we
Well,
read the
I
first
think like a novel like the Satanic Verses is very much like a Thomas Pynchon novel in a way.
Yeah, yeah, very true. So
Yeah.
we read for today the first five chapters, which goes up through page 67. One thing I didn't mention on the introductory post, but might be of use, is that there is a Vineland annotations website, like a Vineland wiki. It's not super filled out. Like there are some explanations for each page, more or less, but it'll be like one or two like little annotated notes. Some of it I did look up and did use it when I'd be like, I wonder who this is, and like see what the reference might be. And there's things that I've learned through that I'll share with you guys. But for listeners, that might be of use to you. Sometimes it'll just be like, I forget which one it was, but I even like put in the sideline in the margin, like, what a groan. Oh, this was it on 48. More lean, Zoid had once suggested, than the Tower of Pisa. And I
Yeah.
was like, ah, that's so bad. And I
Yeah.
looked in the
Yeah,
annotations and they're
but
like,
you know, I have mixed feelings about that sort of annotation because in a way I think that it's like cheating when you read, you know?
I
I mean,
I know what you mean. I don't usually use them, but I did look up like because I have the fear like similar to what you're talking about, Kai, is that the real pensionists are gonna be like, don't you know this? And some of these cultural references, I have no idea. Like even so far as like the Corvairs that he refers to the band, the
yeah,
Corvairs. The Corvair is a specific car that was the only car produced in America that had its engine in the back, and that led to like innumerable accidents and was like clearly like a health hazard and was killing all these people. And Ralph Nader talks about it, and but they ignored all that data and kept publishing or kept making these cars. And
Haven't you
Ralph
read The
Nader made their whole
Outsiders? They
thing on
talk
that.
about rich kids with Corvairs in The
Yeah.
Outsiders. Come on, man. Didn't you go to seventh grade?
Oh,
Come on.
no, I did not. But yeah, so like Corvairs, I didn't know that part of it. Like there's a few things like how you say frenezy. I was always confused because in my mind I didn't know how to say that, but it's frenezy because it's free and easy. And also like Salman Rushdie pointed out that's an anagram for free sin. Things like that I think are fun, like little nuggets, but I don't think they're necessary. And I don't even know, like I get where it would be cheating. This is so thin. No offense to anyone who might be listening to this who works on it. It's so thin that it's not like overwhelming. It's not like
yeah,
everything's annotated in it's just basically like who was Clara Bow?
yeah,
Like
but
that
yeah,
sort of
no,
thing.
I understand that, but I always have the suspicion with that sort of frenetic annotation that lots of, I mean, maybe the 45% of the findings, Thomas Pynchon never thought about them originally, you know? It's like in Bob Dylan's lyrics, you know, that they find things Bob Dylan always laughs about. I never meant that, you know?
Yeah, the one like yeah, and this thankfully this wiki doesn't go into like interpretive stuff. It's
Okay.
like on 66, the last like one of the last pages we read has Takeshi Fumimoto. That's annotated because he appears in Gravity's Rainbow as a
Okay.
kamikaze pilot. And then it does also say that Fumi means smoke in Japanese and Moda is slang for weed.
Yeah.
So it's smoke weed.
And I remember that Kahuna Airlines appears in many books by Pynchon, that sort of
Yeah,
airline. Yeah.
just comes through. And like Zoid is probably a combination of Zen and Void.
Yeah.
Um, like things that are like kind of fun that could be useful, but I don't think they're useful. But anyways, Brian, what'd you think of the first section since this is your first foray?
It's so much fun. I just, I mean, like, I don't even want to like break down the like technical parts that like I really appreciate from a writer's perspective, but just to like sit back and just, I don't know, it's like being in the back seat with that weird uncle that might drive a little bit buzzed and you don't know where you're gonna go, but it's just like, no, when I'm with uncle, like we always go to cool places and he gets me ice cream and stuff, like nothing creepy. Like this is gonna be it's like he's like that cool relative that's not completely safe that your parents aren't cool with, but will let you go out with them to do things. Like
That's fair. That's fair.
it was so much fun.
And there are like he does have like the when you break down like the writing thing, there are like particular grammatical structures
Mhm.
that he uses, like the prolepsis thing of like telling the
Yeah.
action kind of the reverse order and like foreshadowing it. Like all that stuff is like super fun. I agree. Like rereading this, I like that texted you guys. I was like, this is the first time I've laughed out loud reading something in ages.
You can't have this with young writers or with students or anything because like any rule you want to make is basically broken and and it's brilliant and it's so good. And like well, he can do it, but I can't, you know. It's
Fair,
like
fair.
yeah.
Kyle, what was your first impressions of this as your second Pynchon book to read?
Um, Definitely funny. Um, and then I think once I hit the second chapter, that's where I started to sort of get in my own head about things. But definitely funny, and I do enjoy the little games. I like how it's not consistent, but I like how Hector, like almost every single eye has the diacritics. So you're like imagining this like Hispanic, maybe Hispanic accent, maybe not, or like an emphasis.
I imagine the guy from
Um,
Chips.
yeah, some of the puns are great. I mean, I'll just say it. The Marquis de Sade, SOD, for a lawn and garden company is the best thing I've read in a very long time as a pun. I
I
approve of that wholeheartedly.
So to give it like a brief like overview of the section that we read, Zoid Wheeler is our main character. He is a hippie whose wife Fernese has left him for a guy named Brock Vaughn, who is a federal agent. That happened many years ago. He has a daughter. Why am I blanking on his daughter's name? Um,
Frenzy.
Prairie.
Prairie.
Prairie, sorry.
Prairie is his like I think 14-year-old daughter. At least that's what it's referenced in here. I thought she was a little bit older, but who cares? Anyways, he has his daughter. It's an 84. He has a setup where every year if he does something completely mentally insane, then he gets benefits from the government to survive. And so he can like smoke his dope and basically do nothing and like hang out helping people selling crawdads to like the rich yuppie restaurants in the area. This is like somewhat in like Humboldt County. Vineland County is like non-existent, but is like essentially, I guess, is it Del Norte, Brian, and Humboldt, and those that are up in the Northern California, it's kind of in there. So he does this to go crazy. First scene of this is like we could talk about like where his goes wrong, but the main thing is he has to transfenestrate a window and jumps through a window at this this restaurant,
Yeah, it's
and it's all
amazing.
filmed. That's where I learned what the word defenestration meant. I was like, I had no idea reading this. I was like, what is this?
Well, the kings of Prague were defenestrated. The defenestration of the kings of Prague is one of my favorite historical moments in European history.
I love the part where it's like, well, he's not defenestration is when you go out a window. Transfenestration is when you go through the window, which I think is like a metaphor for the book, because you want to go through the looking glass. You don't want to fall out of it. You got to go through. So anyways, he does that. And then his old DEA agent, Hector, that had bothered him and his cohorts for years, begging them for like tips on who to arrest, never got above like totally mid-level agenting and is always offering people $20 to like give them to narc someone out. He's back in town to like warn Zoid more or less that bad shit is coming and that they're looking for Fernese. We find out that Fernese left him for Brock some time ago, right when Prairie was essentially born. She has been gone. And there's a mention by Hector in there that she was in witness protection, but that all that's been deleted because it's been doged. Like the fucking parallels in this book are
I know.
like crazy. So they doged it. So she's on the loose. They think she might come there. Then he like during his normal day, he finds out that Brock Vaughn has reappeared and has essentially seized his house. So he has to go hide and get away. So we've got like the 60s, the late 60s, the whole hippie culture part that's the flashbacks go to, and then the rest of it's the action's taking place in 84. So we're in the Reagan years. And there are mentions to that difference where the Reagan year stuff is like all airsats and bullshit. You get addicted to television. There's even like a line that's something like, oh yeah, back in the 60s, before we became fragmented or even addicted to TV, there's like that acknowledgement of like what's changed. And the Reaganomics stuff is like the yuppies taking over, gentrifying, and like becoming much more like economically like savage. And like that whole has
and the idea of war on drugs, like a slogan,
Oh God, that was worse. The war on drugs thing. This is unfortunate. This is the first podcast in a while which I do not have a THC drink to be drinking, because Jesus Christ, like that's what goes with this book. A lot of good drug use, a lot of fun. So I don't know. What is there any part that you wanted Rodrigo, or anyone wanted to hone in on? That's just a big.
No, I really like the idea of the beginning of the book of some side waking up. I love books that start with someone waking up. It's like wakes up to the book, that it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm awake now. And if I don't remember badly, because I hadn't arrived yet to the end, I'm reading the book again. It finishes with Prairie waking up. I mean, it's a book like framed between two wakings up, and the whole nightmarish uh, dream, sweet dream in the middle. And what I really liked about the book, but I was thinking about picking up all his novels, but I think it's something that happens in a way in all his books. Is like, for example, the first two chapters of Vineland are formally and very tight and very amazingly constructed.
True.
And then it takes over. I mean, entropy is his major theme, and everything starts to crumble and dissolve and going into different directions. But I think that all books by Thomas Pynchon, they have like a very firm frame, and it's with both feet on the ground, and then everything starts to float, and it happens here. And I think that the book is titled Vineland because it has some sort of bind structure in a way. There's like things that all the time are like connecting, but it happens especially in Against
Against the Day is crazy.
and Against the Day.
Against the Day is like crystalline structure of that specific scientific principle, which
and I think the new one, for what I read, is going to be like some sort of, not a sequel to Against the Day, but chronologically takes over the next. It's like some sort of noir gangster story in the 40s, I think.
I do want to
I'm just thinking out loud. Like, wasn't Vineland what the Vikings originally called North America?
It is an Icelandic saga.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Conquered vines, wild, and
yeah.
It makes you wonder about, we hear it's no, it was the 1490s is when it's discovered, not then or whatever. And there's two conflicting stories about what is this North America.
And it does track with that in terms of the invasion nature of it. Like these people are living in this county doing their own thing, and then the federal government's like coming in and fucking them. And and trying to fuck them through Reaganomics too.
And you mentioned Salman Rushdie's review, but I was looking for things the other day, and there's one thing that I read in a Paul Gray review in Time magazine, where he says this that I think it's perfect. I'm going to quote. He says, like some fairly big names in innovative fiction, including Flaubert, Joyce, and Faulkner, Pynchon writes about people who would not be able to read the books in which they appear. And I think it's amazing. And he says, as a contemporary bonus, Pynchon's folks would not even be interested in trying. And he said, that is part of the sadness and the hilarity of this exhilarating novel. And I think that's really perfect in a way, because when you're a writer, and there are many writers that they commit the mistake of writing characters that would love the books they're into.
Yeah, that's true.
And Pynchon that's exactly this. I mean, they couldn't care less in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. With that first thing I was going to say with the defenestration too, that's the part when he jumps through the window, finds out that it's just sugar. Like it's not real. They've already set this all up. It's all fake. Everything's becoming fake, which is like one of the big themes of this book. I also think there's a generational passing down. So when you talk about the waking up, like that passing down of these ideas against, and the sort of rebellion against the man, the powers that be that are there.
I think it's a really, not knowing where the book's necessarily going, but getting an idea of what it's discussing with, these regimes and media, and we can, talk about reality or whatever. It's a very interesting setting because I grew up in Northern California, and I remember someone being older telling me, like, oh, if you go north of the Golden Gate Bridge, that's where all the hippies went. Once they realized what they wanted to do here didn't work, they went up into the woods up here.
Yeah.
He's like, but what really happening, they're all leaving there now because it's not working anymore. And they're all going to Oregon. So if you really want hippies, you got to go to Oregon now. Like it's further north, right? And you see like
Actually moving.
you see what happened to San Francisco and you see what happened to Portland and
Yeah.
what their
Yeah.
state
Yeah.
is
Sure.
now. And it's so ironic
Yeah.
that in San Jose in the South Bay, right, we're in the shadow of where Pynchon was when he was writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the Adobe building, and the top of
Yeah.
the Adobe building has this strange lights.
Yeah.
And someone spent, you know,
Yeah.
weeks, months, years, and it's just it's broadcasting the crying of Lot
Yeah.
49 at the top of their building
Yep.
up to Northern California. But the absurdity of this multi-billion dollar corporation broadcasting Thomas Pynchon's work, like that would be a character in like it's
Yeah.
absolute like you're part of the insanity. You don't even know it. Like
Yeah.
We are through the looking glass. We have
Yeah.
trays come
yeah,
straight.
it's just it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, though.
And it's also a very funny, happy novel about not being funny and being completely unhappy.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. The so Brian, question for you. How about the violence centers?
The what?
The violence centers
Oh
that
my God.
A24, who is Prairie's boyfriend, who has a mohawk and is sort of like, hippie parents sort of punk, where he has this idea to like, he wants Zoe to help him get the money to be able to start a series of violence centers where you go and like, let's see where, here's an example. Third World Thrills, a jungle obstacle course where you get to swing on ropes, fall into the water, blast away at surprise pop-up targets shaped like indigenous gorilla elements. Scum of the City, which would allow the visitor to wipe from the world images of assorted urban undesirables, including pimps, perverts, dope dealers, and muggers. It sounds a little bit like Joytime Killbox material in there.
Yeah.
And it also is now exists. There are like riot rooms and various things where there are these violence centers to be like, yeah, you guys want to fuck shit up? Let's go blow shit up, man. Make money off of it. The commercialization of violence.
Yeah. It's a bit like an antecedent to Chuck Palahniuk in a way, right?
Mhm.
Right, that's true too.
Yeah.
That's very
that's
true.
like a whole different extreme as well.
Well,
There
he
was
was up in Portland when he's writing that stuff, so that's around
Yeah.
where all the hippies ended up going.
absolutely, absolutely. The other thing that really jumped out at me in terms of if we're talking about like how it connects to the the world today is that in last chapter you read in that sequence, he's been in Hawaii trying to chase down Frenzy. He finds her. They don't quite get their problems resolved. She ghosts him immediately while he's jerking it to visions of her. And then he ends up working for this Hawaiian airline in which mysterious things happen in between their flights and people go missing. And it's like a surreal ass plane with like a bar and he's playing keyboard in there.
Yeah.
And they get fucking, do they not just get attacked by ice? Like they're like, there's these UFO type things. They're like, not really UFOs. And a plane
Yeah.
comes alongside, connects up, come on, and they're like, we're just searching for some people. And they're like fully decked out and like eliminating people from the plane, which is just ice.
Yeah. No, and in all that sort of micro stories, I felt it's like he's like the evil twin of Tom Robbins.
Oh, yeah,
Even
yeah,
cowgirls
yeah.
get the blues. I mean, this
Yeah.
novel is like I'm going. I think that in a very perverse way, he was saying like, okay, I'm going to destroy this sort of benign hippie novel by Tom Robbins or T.C. Boyle,
Yes.
and I'm going to propose the dark twin of all that sort of thing, in a way.
It's true. It's very true. I thought that was great. I think that's super fun and disturbing because it is very much like feels a little prescient, like a little scary. But I was gonna say, what other parts stood out to you, Brian?
Um, I noticed there's I keep seeing kind of the maybe we'll use the word reruns of pop culture and television. Just it's just infecting everything. Like I know one of like my first readings of Pynchon where I felt like I kind of got him was
Mhm.
in Lot 49 when the one character, I think it's like Baby Igor or something, is losing his mind watching himself on TV at like this weird like that's where I started to make the connections of like, okay, I see like everything is between TV and reality. It all starts blending and acting out what's happening. And um, in this piece so far, I'm like getting this sense of, and it works so great with when you think about Reaganomics, or if you want to connect it to something similar around the time of like Noam Chomsky manufacturing consent, this idea of media and what it's doing, and it's not good for you, and you're being controlled, you're being manipulated, you're being used. What is your reality now? I'm getting senses of that very early on, so I'm very curious how nightmarish and hellish this is going to become.
Some of these like references I don't know, but like Return of the Jedi is like such on point where they're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, George Lucas came and now like there's all this fucking money, so we're
You
putting him
Yeah,
in
can't, I
a
can't
pretty
tell you how
thing.
many times as a kid I was told, they filmed that right up there,
yeah,
just north of the bridge there, those big trees. It's like,
But like the
yeah,
rebellion against the Empire is like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like yeah, I got just FYI.
And I think it's very funny that he always puts the year between parentheses after the title
Only
of the
if
movie.
it's real. If it's not a
That's
real movie, it
amazing.
doesn't have a year. That's like a something that I figured out. If it does
Yeah,
not list a year, it does not exist. That's his invention. So like
yeah,
the Claire Bow one, that's what I looked up. And like I didn't know like who the singer was, but they're like a very popular singer and like opposite of Claire Bow. So it makes no sense. But that's a joke.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
not there. The other Joytime Killbox part, Brian, is the one that has the suicide packages. When they're like, "Hey, a lot of people here in Hawaii, like, you lost your lady. Do you want to take a suicide package? We'll just show you how it could be done." Blah blah. He's like, "No, man."
Yeah, that's Soylent Green. That's science fiction movies. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely,
But
absolutely.
that part when he's talking to the concierge or the guy at the desk, and the guy like politely listens to a point and then quote dissociates at like
yeah,
What you're saying about the TV stuff, I mean, all the media influences are so extreme, and the addiction, using Hector like being addicted to TV, and then having the group never come and like where they answer the phone, never, and like and then they're like trying to save him and detox him with their
yeah,
detoxability. But then you get on hold with them, like even Zoid calls you like, "Yo, Hector's like stalking me again," and he's gone off the rails. He's watching TV. And they put him on hold, and all they do is play advertisements for TV related things, which is like the worst possible thing for like what you're representing of like getting
yeah.
away from TV. There's like, oh yeah, here we
Well,
go.
but those were the young and innocent days where TV was the big enemy, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And Thomas Pynchon had a cameos at The Simpsons.
Oh
oh,
my God, that was the best. Bag over his head. So
Yeah,
good, so good.
I like the idea of knowing one too many of the Brady Bunch children can get you in trouble.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of the names, Kaya?
They were goofy.
Baba have a banana.
Yeah, they were goofy. I mean, that's one thing I remember from Crying for Lot 49 or Crying of Lot 49, that they were also goofy there.
Yeah,
Um,
those are the ones that a lot of like the nerdy side breeds into and
Yeah.
sex
I,
and like
I really like the name of the band, Billy Barf and the Bummy Tones.
yes,
yeah. Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
I
so
mean,
good.
just the amount of like sheer like inventiveness that comes through on here is always fun. Like,
But he always, I mean, it's part of his style, the idea of putting crazy names to everything. In all his books, it happens.
and like the all the yeah the songs. You mentioned the goofy
Yeah,
songs. So we
yeah,
get two goofy songs in here.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which are always I have a question for you guys. When you read those in your mind, do you try and sing them?
I try to.
I do too. I try
Wasn't
and
there
find what the rhythm would be.
wasn't
And
there
I
one
think
that was
it's some sort. No, I think
oh
they
yeah.
must sound like some sort of Looney Tunes cartoons, something like that. You know?
The only one that I tried to put to music without looking up, because I don't actually know, for the however you pronounce it correctly, the Marseillaise, the unfortunate on the
Yeah,
lawn company's commercial. That's the only one that I tried to, but I think I ended up with "Oh Canada" instead in my mind.
yeah. But
Wrong.
Thomas Pynchon wrote the liner notes for a CD of all the music that the guy who wrote all the songs and all the music for the Looney Tunes and the cartoons of the 30s and the 40s. So I
Totally.
tend to think that maybe they have like some sort of this frenetic sort of with sound effects and things like that, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That totally makes sense. He does reference a song in here, which I'm trying to find. It says something about like, it's about TV as well. That's a real song. That one I was like, is this real? And I looked and it is, and it's goofy as shit. Like it's
Yeah.
gonna be the intro music for this week, but it's super
Yeah.
goofy. And totally amazing. But I tried to sing the song The Wacky Coconuts. Because like wacky coconuts, like I could sort of get it to hear it, but not exactly. But that was the one that I was like into trying to figure out when they're hiding.
Yeah, maybe they sound like some sort of Marx Brothers songs in movies, you know, that sort of thing.
Or like just like yeah, or that old like those old movie like kind of like the I can envision like a woman with like the big flower hat like
Carmen Miranda,
Carmen
also.
Miranda. Yes, exactly. Just like that
Yeah,
sort of level. It's amazing. But overall, like I rereading this again for like what would be the third time, but like ages apart. Aside from 2020, but like whatever, that doesn't count. Is that like I remember so much of this in terms of like as I'm reading it, I remember certain bits, the defenestration, transfenestration, the part where he hits, is it B sharp or B flat? And like
yeah,
it's out there things. Like there's parts where I remember where I was, which is something I'm kind of want to talk about this season of like memory related to books. When I first read this, I was just graduated from college. It would have been like 97. And I was living still in East Lansing. And in our apartment, I was sitting on the bed with the edition similar to one that you have, Rodrigo, but oversized that I had bought at a used bookstore, reading this and being like, I don't know what defenestration is. I'm trying to figure this out. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm a college graduate. I could crack this code if I pay enough
yeah,
attention. What's this a metaphor for? And feeling like a utter kind of failure along the way. But I remember that so distinctly. And rereading this, I remember so much of it. I can't always
yeah,
remember everyone's name. Like Brock Vaughn wouldn't come to me. But
yeah,
that's another like if you want to tie this into the Pynchon universe, like the V's are so important. There's
yeah,
the V2 rockets that you don't hear until they
yeah,
hit. Like the initial V, all like that it shows up over and over and over again.
yeah,
It's like it
yeah.
usually
But in short, what I really like about Pynchon is that I have the impression that while he's writing his books, he laughs a lot
he
to him.
must.
He
Right.
and I think that's some sort of fun, happiness, stupid sort of uh, diversion that he gets writing. You sort of get it reading him too. You know, that's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I do recognize that in reading this because I read him at such a formative age that this was my desired voice for writing. Is like that
Yeah,
like loose, like simple, direct, funny, has some sort of like that kind of joke, but like the structure of it and the sort of tone of like this is smart, but I'm not gonna like overdo it. Like
yeah.
I like what you said, Brian, like the sort of drunk uncle telling you stories in the back. That vibe of it is like so ideal to me.
Mm.
But anyway, I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to mention? Anyone?
We have to choose our favorites parts of paragraphs or whatever,
Oh,
right?
Rodrigo, I'm ready. Yeah, favorite
Yeah.
line of the week. Yeah.
Who
Line of the week.
starts? Who
You can.
starts?
You brought it up.
I
You got to
start.
go first.
Well, I really like the first paragraph. For me, it's amazing the way
So good.
the novel starts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's perfectly constructed. It's complex. It's funny. It's like it has some sort of Fred Astaire kind of dancing, getting into scene. You know, it's like I really like that, and I really like also there's in chapter 3 where they compared their romance to Sylvester and Tweety. I really like that.
Yes, yes.
And what I really, really, really liked is it's a very short sentence, which is a very strange thing for Pynchon in page 65, where he says, night fell like the end of a movie. I really love that.
Oh yeah, that is a great line.
It's amazing. I want to steal.
Good.
I'm going to steal it. I'm going on record here. I'm going to use it. I
I do. One of the things I circled that I think is very funny is that I think would be weird for people who are reading this today. All the post-dated checks. Like there's so many check writing opportunities that happen. Like,
yeah.
what is that? My favorite line is pretty simple and not super funny, but is when he's talking about like about Frenzy and Prairie being born and wanting to raise her, you know, free of all the man and like and convince her not to get an abortion. And people are like, yo, you could raise her with LSD in the baby bottle. You could do this, like all over. And then you know, she leaves, Frenzy leaves. And I forget who is he talking to here. Whoever he's talking to says, Hector, you're blaming yourself for the line of work she got into? And Zoid says, for not seeing too much, for thinking we'd get away with it, thinking we'd beat them all. Yep, you really fucked up, Van Meter said. It's like, that's what I like. Yep, we thought we could beat them. Nope, you fucked up, buddy.
Amazing.
Brian, you got one?
Yeah, it's two lines actually. They're both on page 45, right in the middle. Prairie worked at the Bodhidharma Pizza Temple, which a little smugly offered the most wholesome, not to mention the slowest fast food in the region. A classic example of the California pizza concept at its most misguided. And then just a little bit lower, it said, Zoid happened to catch Prairie on a meditation break.
I love that. So that's so California. I also love the description of it. Like its sauce was all but crunchy with fistfuls of herbs only marginally Italian and more appropriate in a cough remedy. Love it. Kaija, you got one?
Yes, I have one which you kind of already touched on, and then sort of a backup one, but the first one on page 27, where he's talking with Hector, and Hector's like, her file's destroyed, and Zoid says, why? Thought you guys never destroyed a file. With all these little fund, defund, refund games, which struck home with the whole any administration. But I also love on page 49 where he goes to the pizza place to pick up Prairie, and the people inside are like surrounding a table that Hector is standing on top of and just like sort of flanking him in. And Hector spots Zoid and shouts, Zoid, órale, carnal, tell these people how much I don't need this shit.
That's one of the ones I laughed out loud at too.
Yeah.
I just enjoy, man. It's so good coming home to like this sort of Pynchon level where it's just like
Yep.
pure bliss. Like, fuck yeah. Like, whatever things you might miss, like the major strokes of it are so obvious and so like on point. And even as this book will fall into its like entropy and chaos, it's still like war on drugs, government, federal things bad. Can we find some hope outside of that?
No,
So
and looking for mother.
looking for mother, looking for yeah.
It's
Gotta
one of
find
the
mother.
big things, big themes on
V.
many writers of the 19th century and John Irving in right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, there's yeah. We'll definitely get into that. So for next week, we go up to page 129 through 129. It seems that most all the editions that exist have the same page numbers. Brian, is 129 the end of a chapter for you?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep. So all of them seem to have the same page number, which solves that problem. Otherwise, yep, we'll be back next week to go over that. And I don't know what's coming, but I'm sure it'll be a laugh.
Good luck with that.